Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another session of Mr. Smith's class. And some more unplugged wisdom for you. Here we go. Turns out a certain school district has proclaimed April 2021 as Autism Acceptance Month. It says in the memo, autism spectrum disorder, ASD, or autism, is a developmental disorder typically diagnosed during the first 3 years of life, often leading to significant communication, social, and behavioral challenges. In 2016, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released data on the prevalence of autism in the United States. The Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network identified about 1 in every 54 children as autistic. Autism is diagnosed 4 times more often in boys than girls, but can affect anyone regardless of race, ethnicity, and other factors. Wow, they say it's 4 times more often in boys than girls. You know, just to pause for a second and comment on this, that just seems to be more of an attack on boys and masculinity in schools, which is happening, believe me, trust me, I know, has been happening for a long time. So these guys in the red pill arena and manosphere and MGTOW, they're right. There's a war on men and boys and masculinity. Okay, they absolutely are encouraging men to wear dresses, or boys I should say, in high schools. In some of the what do you call it? Like activities that high schools have, and they also they're worried that boys are not performing as well in school as girls. You want to know why that is? Because boys, masculinity is not as agreeable as femininity. Boys don't automatically just listen to what you're teaching them and do the assignments. They question it. And boys, if we're not interested in what a person is teaching, we're not going to perform very well. Okay, girls like to do everything. Girls want to be rated. Girls want, multitasking abilities. They have better multitasking abilities. So they do better in school in general, but it doesn't mean they necessarily learn more. Okay, it just means they do better because they do all the work that the teachers require. Getting back to this, I don't want to get too off topic. It continues to say, autistic individuals often benefit from specialized and community support services to ensure their health and safety and to support families' resilience as they manage the potential psychological and financial challenges autism can present. This particular school district is dedicated to developing and sustaining programs and resources that support autistic students and their families. There is a huge industry on what is called special education. Interesting. Yeah, they're always looking for special ed teachers. They didn't have nearly as many special ed teachers or special ed programs back in the day. Seems to be increasing. Something to think about. This district employs qualified and caring individuals who strive to support autistic students and their families. Okay, so April is now Autism Acceptance Month. So they want us, here's the deal, they want us to accept autism. Just accept it. Just accept the fact that we're going to have a bunch of people that are socially inept and can't take care of themselves and zombies. Now, let's go to my favorite book. And if you've been watching my videos, you know this is a great book. It's on the screen there. I'll read it again. What really makes you ill, why everything you thought you knew about disease is wrong. Let's see what it says about autism. And if you haven't known about this book does not mess around. It backs everything up with data. I highly encourage everybody to get this book. It's recent. It came out in 2019. But let's see. And if I read this whole thing on autism, we'd be here forever. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to touch on some important points here. Okay, autism. The establishment definition. Let me start over. The establishment defines autism as a psychiatric disorder of childhood with an onset before the age of 2.5 years. It is marked by severe difficulties in communicating and forming relationships with other people, in developing language, and in using abstract concepts, repetitive and limited patterns of behavior, and obsessive resistance to tiny changes in familiar surroundings. Unquote. The book goes on to say, the symptoms associated with autism are diverse. They can manifest in a wide variety of combinations and with varying degrees of severity. Autism is not, however, regarded as a single disorder, but as a range of conditions that are categorized under the generic label Autism Spectrum Disorder, or ASD. Interestingly, and in common with most of the health problems discussed in this chapter, the medical establishment acknowledges that many aspects of autism, including its causes, are poorly understood or even unknown. Skipping down a bit, it goes on to say that the World Health Organization's fact sheet says, quote, available scientific evidence suggests that there are probably many factors that make a child more likely to have an ASD, including environmental and genetic factors. Unquote. The claim that genetic factors may be involved is not, however, corroborated by geneticists, as indicated by Dr. Russell Blaylock, who reports in his 2008 article entitled Vaccines, and from now on I'll refer to that word as needle drugs, because I know YouTube doesn't want to hear that word. In his 2008 article entitled Needle Drugs, Neurodevelopment, and Autism Spectrum Disorders, that, quote, geneticists were quick to respond that genetic disorders do not suddenly increase in such astronomical proportions, unquote. So Dr. Blaylock is saying you can't say it's genetic. There's no way. Or genetic factors. Now, why does he say in such astronomical proportions? What does he mean by that? Well, let's read on. This is what he means by that. In 1983, one child in 10,000 in the United States was diagnosed with autism, or ASD. The CDC webpage entitled Data and Statistics on Autism Spectrum Disorder contains a table that displays the rates of ASD for 8-year-old children surveyed at 2-year intervals between 2000 and 2014. The table shows that the rate of ASD for 8-year-olds surveyed in the year 2000 was 1 in 150. In 2000, okay, let's stop there for a second. So in 17 years, it went from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in only 150. That's what he means by astronomical, what do you say? Astronomical proportions. Keep that thought in mind. In 2010, the rate had risen to 1 in only 68. By 2014, it had reached 1 in 59. At the time of the writing of this book, 2014 is the most recent year for which the ASD rates in the U.S. are available. Just let that sink in. Let's skip down a little bit. So, we've determined that it's not genetic. So it's got to be environmental. and the onset is usually before 3 years old. Let's take a look at some possibilities here. Let's go down here. It says treatment for these conditions. Now, when it says these conditions, it means childhood mental disorders like autism or ADHD. Treatment for these conditions may entail the use of pharmaceutical drugs, although this is not always the case. However, and more disturbingly, the age at which a child can be diagnosed with a mental disorder and treated with drugs has no lower limit. As indicated by a May 2014 CCHR, which stands for CCHR article entitled Watchdog Says Report of 10,000 Toddlers on ADHD Drugs Tip the Iceberg. CCHR stands for Citizens Commission on Human Rights. In their article, they refer to documents obtained by CCHR from the IMR Health, which is Infant Mortality Rate Health, that reports statistics for the U.S. for the year 2013. These statistics state that in the age range of birth to 1 year, there were 249,669 infants on anti-anxiety drugs. What? 26,406 on antidepressants, 1,422 on ADHD drugs, and 654 on antipsychotics. Because that psychotic 6-month-old might jump out and kill somebody. What is going on here? The number of psychiatric drugs prescribed for 2 to 3-year-old toddlers were even higher. In addition, the article reports that the total number of children under the age of 18 who were taking psychiatric drugs were over 1 million between birth and 5 years of age, over 4 million between the ages of 6 and 12, and over 3.5 million between 13 and 17. You think that might cause some 3-year-olds to go cuckoo in the melon there? Maybe have a little problem with processing, or even being social. Yeah, I think so. Let's read on. Let's skip some pages here. Let's get some, because this book is just unbelievable. I mean, it just goes in. But let's skip a little bit. Let's see what it says here. The World Health Organization fact sheet about ASDs claims that, quote, there is also no evidence to suggest that any other childhood V needle drug, if you know what I mean, may increase the risk of ASD, unquote. These claims are not only disingenuous, they are erroneous. The discussions in Chapter 2 demonstrated that all V needle drugs pose genuine risk to health due to the toxic nature of many of their ingredients. Whilst it may be virtually impossible to prove beyond doubt that a specific V needle drug is the sole cause of a specific adverse health event following its administration, it is beyond doubt that V needle drugs are eminently capable of triggering the onset of a variety of health problems, including neurological problems, by virtue of the toxic and neurotoxic properties of their ingredients. I'm not going to go into V needle drug ingredients here, but we are going to look at one in a minute. Let's skip down a little bit. It is indisputable that the number of V needle drugs doses administered during the first 2 years of a child's life has increased substantially since the early 1980s. You think that's just a coincidence that the doses administered during the first 2 years of a child's life increased substantially during the early 1980s, and the autism rates going through the roof from 1983 to 2000. You think? Let's move a little bit forward. In the article, Neil Miller and Gary S. Goldman report their finding that the countries with the lowest infant mortality rates were those that administered the fewest V needle drugs within the first year of a child's life. They discovered that the United States, which administers the most V needle drugs, had the highest infant mortality rate. You think these needle drugs they're giving our kids from 0 to 2 years old, within the first year of the child's life, might be causing these problems? I think so. Real quick, I know a family who has 4 very, very healthy children at this point. They just had their 4th. And I know that the younger 3, maybe not their first child, but the younger 3 were born in their house using a midwife. They didn't even use a hospital. And these children are all fine. You might want to look into it if you guys are young parents and you're listening to this. This is for you. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Moving along, Dr. Blaylock, the geneticist that we referred to earlier, he says, quote, "It is known that aluminum accumulates in the brain and results in neurodegeneration. Aluminum is a common ingredient in these needle drugs that they give to the children. Aluminum is I won't use the word, instead I'll say needle drug adjuvant, which means that its purpose is to boost the body's reaction to the needle drug to create immunity. The body does react to needle drugs, but not in the way described by the medical establishment. The body's reactions are not the result of the immune system's response to a germ. Instead, they are the body's efforts to expel toxins." Okay. We'll leave it there. And school districts are now telling us to accept autism. Just accept it. Don't fight it. Don't ask why. Just accept it. Accept that our children are turning into mummies and dysfunctional idiots. Just accept it. This is your humble servant, Mr. Smith. Please like and subscribe. Please spread the word. And class is done. You're dismissed, and I will see you guys next time.